Fernanda, thank you again so very much for your time today. I know you've been I know you've been doing a lot of interviews and speaking with so many people, and I'm happy you are because you deliver such a beautiful performance in this film, so it's all very much deserved.
Thank you. We are so surprised in a way, the way the film has been received, and now it's just opened in Brazil, and it was like a big, big hit. So we're
Yeah.
so happy with it.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, the home country finally getting able to screen this film. What have some of been the reactions that you've heard from the Brazilian audiences?
Amazing reactions because, after the pandemic, people just bought these huge television sets and cinema. I think it happened here too. People were not going to cinemas anymore so
Mhm.
much. And then suddenly, because of our movie, it created this kind of national pride around the movie, and people are going, families going to movies, and people like crying and embracing each other at the end of the screenings, and full screenings like packed with people. We are so proud of it. We're so happy because finally that's the main goal. I mean, to have people in movies. So we're really, really happy.
And especially one that deals with a topic that unfortunately so many people maybe were directly impacted by, knew of friends, family members, whoever it might be. I'm sure even that adds even more of a emotional and I don't know if cathartic is a correct word to use, but I think it just brings about a number of different emotions for people.
A lot of first to discover this woman
Hmm.
who is like a heroine. I mean, the way she fought against the dictatorship was in such a special way. She was not never like aggressive. She was always smiling,
Hmm.
and through justice, he was able to finally have them recognizing what they did with her to her family, and also because it's a family movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie that says something really sad about our history and the history of the world, because the dictatorship in South America didn't happen because of South American problems, was during the Cold War
Hmm.
when the whole world went berserk. So,
Hmm.
uh, and there it happened this way. And now again, the movie's kind of crazy again with all this violence and people aggressive. And so suddenly you tell this story about enduring and resisting, but through a family, through affection. So what is amazing in Brazil is that we are starting to see that people from all kinds of uh, political beliefs and religion beliefs, it doesn't matter, because they are like they are having empathy for
Hmm.
this family, this woman. So we are kind of winning this binary world that we're living in now through this movie. So it's very touching. I think it's a movie about that time, of course, but it's a movie about now, a lot about now.
Yeah. It's always so fascinating how we always think and hope history doesn't repeat itself. And at least the emotions and the ways that people treated one another, that they've learned from that. They've learned from those mistakes. But it's really unfortunate how many times we just see these cycles continue. And I mean, really, what a better time than now to release a film such as this?
Yes, that's what I think, and not from the point of view of the guerrilla people
Right.
who are like fighting and holding guns against the dictatorship. No, through this very intelligent woman
Hmm.
and the way she dealt with the family. I mean, it's a woman. She really faced a tragic story. It's not a melodrama, and the way she like had she was not allowed to have self pity
Hmm.
or to cry in the street. She had to just move on. And this is such a strange and powerful message to all of us now, I think. And not only because of, I think, the politics, I think we're living in a time of fear
Hmm.
because of the pandemic and global warming. It's like an apocalyptic world that we're living now. And suddenly, this family, this woman, reminds us that there is love. I mean, there is a way of dealing with difficulty that perhaps we can endure if we believe in this kind of bond, you see. So it's a very powerful film for now, I think.
I agree, definitely. And I had the privilege to view this at the premiere in Venice, where I know so many of my fellow critics really, really enjoyed this film. I'm curious for yourself. I studied Spanish when I was in school, and so I had an opportunity to learn a lot about just South American history and culture, and of course, diving into some of these military dictatorships just throughout the continent. For yourself, of course, as a Brazilian resident and woman, and specifically with the Paiva story and Eunice Paiva's fight, was this specific family's story one that you had known of for decades at this point, or was this more of a newer introduction for you?
That's the thing. Marcelo Rubens Paiva, who wrote the book
Hmm.
that the film is based on, he became this very famous writer when
Hmm.
he was 20 years old. He had this accident and he lost the movements of his body. And
Hmm.
suddenly you had this beautiful boy, totally paralyzed, but he wrote a book about his
Hmm.
recovery that was like a hit, a blockbuster to my generation. I like to say that he became like this sex symbol for my generation. I was younger than him, and and we all knew that his father been had disappeared, tortured, and killed during the dictatorship. But nobody knew details about this story
Mm,
because actually the family just discovered the details in 2014.
right.
So it was really a hidden story for Brazil. So when he released the book, I was not involved in the movie yet. I ran to read it, and the story is much more amazing and incredible than I could think. And then the details of how this family was not even allowed to to bury
Hmm.
their father. I mean, not even the body was returned, and 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 how is it possible? I mean, so no, I didn't know. I knew it. I knew just the headline of the
Sure.
story, but
Hmm.
never the details. And this book allowed me to finally get to know the details of how a boy, it's this boy who is behind you, he's the one who wrote the story, and how he endured it at the age of 9. Uh, and then the idea that we don't know it and that we never knew this woman because she started as the widow of Rubens Paiva and then the mother of Marcelo Rubens Paiva.
Hmm.
But we didn't know how great she was. So, and the movie is interesting because he doesn't give you historical details. You just know the story that they know, that
Hmm.
she is allowed to know. So when she goes to prison, you only hear the torture, you never see the torture, which is very powerful. So now I think the movie is like touching the hearts of people, you know, the
Hmm.
heart of people. And I think they will be like curious about the whole story. And then they have the book, and then they have history. So it's very important that you understand that was not because when you depict like a guerrilla hero, uh, it doesn't look like your family.
Right.
But in this movie, you think, but if it happened to my family, this is not fair. So the feeling that this is very unjust.
Hmm.
I think this film is very powerful to deliver this message.
And I know I've seen the film t twice now, and I really do respect that the film comes at it in the most realistic way possible. It's not over dramatizing these events. They're already very harrowing and very heartbreaking for this family as is, but you don't need, as you said, you don't need to see torture because Eunice did not witness that herself. We're just seeing inside of their lives, and it's better to stay as realistic as possible to them and their experiences than to, just overly add all of this extra drama when it doesn't necessarily need to be in there.
This is something very special about this movie. When I watched it for the first time, I was like really surprised because with the honesty
Mm-hmm.
of this film, the way we act doesn't look like acting.
Yeah.
Because when you act normally, you have a lot of codes
Yeah.
that are good, but they are like fiction codes.
Mm-hmm.
How you are supposed to cry, how you're supposed to scream, how the camera is supposed uh, to shoot an anger scene. But then in this movie, Walter, the director, he almost disappeared. I
Mm.
mean, it's a very humble movie from the point of view of a director because he doesn't show off. The music won't push you, nothing will push you. She doesn't cry. And this is something that wanted to be very faithful to the real Eunice. It comes from her that the fact that we don't show off. This is Eunice. And then when I looked at us, I mean, the house, the wardrobe, everything looks so real.
Yeah.
And was really amazing for me. I've never seen such a truthful movie. And the way we act, I was surprised with me. I was like, my God, they deliver such an honest performance, which I'm very proud of. It
You should
teaches me a
be.
lot. And when Eunice doesn't cry, then the audience cries for her.
Right.
It's like it becomes a kind of the audience knows what she's going through, but then she doesn't show it.
Mm-hmm.
So the audience it starts to cry because this woman is not crying. And this is
Mm-hmm.
very powerful in this movie. A friend of mine from New York, a New Yorker, he told me, I felt things that for a long time, I don't remember I felt in movies. The way it like moved me. So it's a very powerful movie, I think, in
That's
this
a
sense.
that's a true sign of it when a New Yorker of all people can say that.
Exactly. I mean, ironic as hell, cold,
Yes.
intellectual. And then
Yes.
he was crying, you see.
Yes, I entirely agree with that, especially that first act when we are just spending time with the family and you just feel so much love and so much, it just feels like a home with all of these people together. There's so many children running around, but there's so much love shared between each of the siblings, and they have a new puppy in their life, and just the mother and father are just have this beautiful bond that it really makes it so much harder to say goodbye to Rubens once he exits, and unbeknownst to everybody, that's the last time that we will see him and that the family sees him. It just makes that cut so much more difficult to process. And I was curious for yourself too, as you transitioned into that latter part of the film where it's you taking on this very powerful matriarch character and you are being so stoic in front of all of these children. How do you make that switch then when it comes to your performance?
That was Walter. I mean, he shot it
Mm, hmm.
chronologically. So the beginning, I mean, that party, we're all friends. All those
Yeah.
actors, they are our friends. So, and the house, I like to say, the kitchen smelled like garlic. Everything was so real. That house is so wonderful.
It's such
And
a
we're
beautiful
having
home.
such a beautiful home in a very beautiful part of Rio. And it
Yeah.
was sunny time and our friends and to be with kids, to perform, to interact with kids. It always creates something so fresh. And then one day, Selton was gone, the actor that does Rubens. And
Hmm.
Selton is my friend. And I realized that next day he wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not there, and the house was closed, so we didn't have the light anymore. And then one day I was taken to prison chronologically. So the whole chronological things allowed me to dip in it, just like Onisi did.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a director choice. I mean, that helped a lot for us to build, to do not pretend we're feeling that, we're really feeling that.
Yeah.
For instance, at the end, when the house was being, they are moving,
Mm.
and they were like putting everything, the furniture in the truck. The girl who does the movie, the little girl, was her first movie. She was not an actress.
Mm.
And she was like looking the furniture being put in the truck. And she realized that it was the end of that of an adventure in her life.
Yeah.
So there's a take of her, and it's a mix of the actress and the character, which is very beautiful in the movie.
And I like to hear that this film was filmed in chronological order. As you said, I think that just adds even more of the inner drama that each of the actors feel, and I think that helps show even more so through the performances just how much of a impact is felt.
But that's it, and that was Walter's choice. I remember at a certain point we could do the prison before we start in the beginning of the shooting, and he says, "No way, there
Mm.
is no way you are not going to do it chronologically." You
Hmm.
see?
That makes sense. I know you don't have too much time left with me, but
No, I do.
I
Please, it's a
of
pleasure.
Of course, of course. I did just want to just quickly ask you one more question, and that is, I know that you two don't share a scene together in this film, but you and your mother get to play the same brilliant woman in this film. I'd love to know if you were on set when your mother came in to finish off the film, and I guess just what it was like either getting to see her, or I'm sure so many people congregating to see Fernanda on screen and do her work because she's just a brilliant, brilliant woman.
Well, my mother is something else. And in this film, we have this other layer of very emotional thing, which is I did Foreign Land with Walter 30 years ago, and was our formative movie. I
Mm,
know that Walter discovered what kind of director he was in Foreign Land.
hmm.
And then later I saw him taking that and doing Central Station with my mother.
Hmm.
And then suddenly now we're all together in I'm Still Here. And so even the passage, I mean, from me to my mother, it's so moving. And the part she does is like my mother, she has done so many great characters in her life. I mean, she's like she has all those characters in her soul. And suddenly to see her with Alzheimer and totally blank and empty, this is so moving.
Hmm.
I mean, and to have both of us in the same film, it also, I think, creates this idea that endurance,
Hmm.
that art is enduring in Brazil. Uh, Sometimes we are attacked, sometimes we're loved, but we endure. So, and Eunice reminded me a lot of my mother at that time in the 70s. I used to live in a house just like that.
Hmm.
So we didn't do scenes together. She saw me, she wanted to see me doing it before doing her Eunice. But the fact that we are together in this movie with Walter, and that the movie is receiving such a recognition, just like Central Station in a way, it's so moving for us. And it has this other very emotive and a very touching layer to the movie, I think.
Even though she doesn't say anything in this film. It's just enough to look in her eyes and see the, her eyes gleam up for 1 second. And I think you have the same effect with us in this film too, and just many of your quiet moments. So, I mean,
Oh,
what an amazing film to blend two wonderful actresses together.
yes, it has a lot of meaning, this movie, historically, emotionally, in the art sense. I mean, it's a very delicate, which is not, it's a rare thing to happen nowadays. It's a delicate, profound movie, I think. And it has me and my mother together with Walter, which like touches me a lot.
What more could you want?
Nothing else. Now it's retirement.
We're done.
We are done.
Well,
I told the kids when we finished, and in Venice, I told them, this is your first movie. From now on, you just go down. You can't go up. I mean, you are in the peak of our career.
that sets them off with a very good message. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, Fernanda, I know you have a few other interviews to come for later today, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and to speak with you, and really congratulations again on your wonderful work in this film.
Oh, thank you very much for this interview and for you being there and watching the film 2 times. It's a very special movie for us. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely.